Hey, 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 welcome back to the show. This is Katryn Rose, your host of Kreatrix TV, and today we have a special guest for you. I am here with Mary Terhune, and I hope, Mary, I'm saying your name correctly. She is author of Out of the Blue. She is an amazing spiritual teacher. She doesn't always consider herself as that, but she is going to share with us today a bit about of her own personal spiritual awakening, some of the changes she went through, how she processed grief, and the thread that went through her life of how this is all connected. And I can't wait to ask her too about her Kundalini awakening, spontaneous from what I understand, Mary.
Yes.
Master Jesus. So Mary, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kat, for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, that's awesome. I am so delighted that you're here. And you've been an inspiration to me since I've met you. We've met a couple times in person and I've asked you questions and you're so willing to talk about your life and your experience. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to share that with other people today. Let's jump in with one question before we get into your story. What does spirituality mean to you right now at this point in your life?
Well, spirituality is being in touch with your divine consciousness within, which is the foundation of all life. So it's our foundation, the foundation of everything that's been created on this planet. And its origin is divinity. And so when we have this inner experience, we call it spirituality, like spirit consciousness, same thing. So that's what spirituality is. It's being in touch with this foundation of divine consciousness that you are, that is not just confined to having a physical body, a personality, a job. You're far more than that. But having a physical body and having a job and a name and all of that is just so that you can function here on the earth plane. But what you truly are is this divine consciousness in action on the earth. There's only consciousness, and consciousness is experiencing. And that's what we all are in this. It's a oneness. It's everywhere, all around us, in us. It's floating all around, we just don't have eyes to see it all the time. So
I love that. And a follow-up question to that beautiful explanation of it. Have you always believed that, or what really was a shift if you haven't?
Well, I'll start with my story about what happened, how I came into it. And it was over 30 years ago now. And it took me 30 years to finally publish and figure out that I was actually supposed to share this. First, I had to integrate all of it, understand it, and then I could share it. But it took me a very, very long time to do that. And I wasn't sure if I was supposed to do it. But I finally came to see that this was my life's work, that I'm supposed to share this. And, just to affirm for other people their experiences. So it was back in 1984, and I was in the midst of a life crisis. I had lost all my money in a real estate deal, and it involved friends, which made it even worse. And I was thrown into debt. I realized my retirement money was now gone. And I was in such a state of mind that I was in such a desperate state of mind with so much anxiety that I've never experienced like that before. But I was standing in my living room. I was just sobbing. I just let it all go. I just felt all the grief. And I didn't care if I cried myself to death. This is how deep it was. And in the midst of all of this, all of a sudden, this light, well, first I said, please, God, let me die. This is too hard. Of course, I called out to a God that I didn't believe in as some amorphous thing outside me, but that was my, gut feeling at the time. And so just as I did that, all of a sudden, from my window, this light came pouring in to my window. And it was so powerful. It was like this golden light that I had to lay down on the couch. And all of a sudden, this feeling of forgiveness came over me. And then I didn't know where it came from. But all of a sudden, then I heard a voice say, now do you understand that true forgiveness is self-forgiveness? And I realized at some point that this voice was the voice of the Master Jesus. Now, I didn't hold it in any religious context. I always thought of him as a spiritual teacher or as a teacher. I didn't even have the word spiritual at the time, but I always thought of him as a teacher,
Okay.
teaching love and grace and that sort of thing. So even though I was raised in the Catholic Church, I had left the dogma a long time ago. And as he spoke the words, now do you understand that true forgiveness is self-forgiveness? He said, you can't judge yourself anymore. You didn't know. You were always a good person. And then he went on to explain judgment to me, that when you judge, that there is no one to judge. You're just judging yourself. So there's no reason that you free yourself of that. And as he began to explain these things, all of a sudden, this energy from within me. Now, I was in my 3rd year of massage school. I was also a registered nurse working
Okay.
at a major hospital in research administration. So I was doing both and also studying to be a massage therapist. And so this was my 3rd year of massage school, and I had heard about the chakra energy system. And I heard about these chakras, but I didn't know if they were real. And someone was saying, oh, there's all this light. And I'm like, what is that all about? And now I was having an experience of it. He awakened this energy within me that came up from the base of my spine. And I felt all the chakras spinning. We have 7 chakras. And they
Okay.
started all to spin. And as they began to spin, I felt all this love pouring through me and in me. And it was so blissful and so peaceful. And he spoke 7 judgments, 7 revelations: forgiveness, judgment, the Bible, weight and emotions, on disease, aging, and the ego.
Okay.
And as he was explaining these, giving me these 7 revelations, he would give me the example in my own life. And I would have the experience and understanding of it.
Mm.
And of course, as he's doing this, I heard this old saying, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter the kingdom. And I understood that rich man means someone who is filled with ideas and materialism and, stuff. And it was such an amazing experience because it removed all the fear that I had, all the anxiety that I had. And I was just emanating this love coming through me. And when he finished speaking the 7 revelations, he withdrew the energy from the window. And I got up completely changed because the last thing that he did before he left was to remove a veil from my 3rd eye. This is the eye of where you can see from soul level. So he removed this veil here. And when I went out to the back porch to get some fresh air and I opened the door, I looked all around and what I saw were all these photonic packets of light, these little packets of light everywhere, all around the tree, apple tree, everywhere. And I went, that's the light. That's the energy that created this world. And I realized, oh my God, this is paradise, but we've turned it into something else. And I started sobbing all over again because the feeling, the power of this love, this divine love that created everything, and we are that divine love, is everywhere. That's why I say it's everywhere, but you don't see it unless you've been given this chance to experience this as part of your own consciousness, is the ability to see these. And, and here I am, just emanating this love, feeling this love. It's like pouring through me and pouring in me. And I had to go to work. I had to go back to work at the hospital the very next day. And I was still emanating all this love. Wherever I looked, I only saw love. I looked at everybody and I saw love. When I driving to work, it was just love, and love poured through everybody and everything. And all I wanted to do was be like Eckhart Tolle and sit on a bench for 2 weeks and just soak up this love everywhere and watch this sort of the phantasmagoria of life pass me by, people walking by, buses, cars, things moving, trees. And I'm just moving in this love as pure love. And
Wow.
I remember I was working in research administration at the time. I remember going up the elevator with a bunch of doctors, and they were making fun of acupuncture. And
Oh, wow.
well, and I thought to myself, you have no idea. If you only would just open your mind, acupuncture is just about tuning in to these meridians, this
Mhm.
consciousness within you to help release any where it's stuck, the energy stuck. If you only knew, you wouldn't say those things.
Yeah.
And then I would became very affected by being around other people who were unkind. And I'm
Mm.
like, what is wrong with these people? It's like, what is wrong with these people? Can't they see the love? Can't they feel the love? It's like that song, Can't You Feel the Love Tonight?
Yeah.
You know, and it changed me completely. And it began me, and I started to go on a path of discovery because I thought I need to find a pair of eyes and I need to find a person who understands Einstein's theory of relativity, energy equals mass times light, because that's the only thing I sort of, with more of a scientific mind being in a hospital, I could relate it to. It was like, what is this? Why isn't anybody talking about this? This is the greatest thing that could ever happen to anybody. And this is back in the 80s now. They weren't talking about consciousness then. So I said a prayer. I said, look, you have to send me somebody, a person who's actually on the earth who can explain to me what happened and who understands, more importantly for me, who could understand it. So I didn't feel so alone
Mm.
with this experience, this amazing experience. And so it was 2 years later, I would, in between the 2 years of 84 and 86, I kept trying to go to talks of different teachers.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, no, that's not it. They're not it. No, that's not it. And finally, I saw an advertisement that spoke about energy medicine. And I thought, energy medicine,
Mm.
yeah, I'm going to go to that talk. So I went to a talk, and there was a panel of people talking about different things, acupuncture and other healing modalities. And the last person that stood up was this man. He was an energy healer. And he stood up, he didn't say his name, he didn't introduce himself. He just said, E equals MC squared, Einstein's theory of relativity. And I went, oh my God, the hair stood up on the back, of my arms. And I'm like, that's the one. I got to talk to him. So I ran over to him before he left because there were a couple of hundred people listening to this talk. They grabbed his arm so he couldn't leave. And I said, I have to make an appointment with you. He was an energy healer. So he
Uh-huh.
made an appointment right then and there. I went into his office when the day came, and he walked into the office, but he said, wait a minute, I have to go get something. I'll be right back. And as he left the office, I noticed there was a picture on the wall, and it was the headshot of a monk. And I went over to the picture and I looked at the eyes. Oh, those are the eyes. Those are the eyes of the one I'm supposed to see.
Mm-hmm.
And when I looked into her eyes, the picture came alive. Now, I know that sounds strange, but let me tell you, when these things happen to you, you know this is the truth because it feels so familiar, like
Mm.
you've known this before.
Yeah.
And when they came alive, she said, we're coming together again to complete something. And then she showed me a little clip of a movie screen where I had been a monk of hers in a past life, but
Mm-hmm.
we got separated for some reason, political reasons or whatever reasons. And so I couldn't complete my time with this teacher who happened to be a woman. So when the healer came back into the room, I'm still staring at the picture. And I said, is that a monk? And he goes, yeah. I said, is she alive? Most important to me. He goes, yeah, she's coming to Boston in 2 weeks. You want to meet her?
Oh.
And I'm like, okay, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And I met this monk who later I would spend time with, receiving a deeper initiation of the Kundalini, same
Mm-hmm.
Kundalini. And I met her when she came to Boston, me and a couple of hundred other people, by the way.
Okay.
And she spoke about the ego. And I thought, those are the exact same words that Jesus used. This is the same.
Mm.
I see. It's the same. All teachers, all spiritual teachers are the same. They're teaching, the true ones are teaching the same message. The
Okay.
message doesn't change. And
That,
so when I went to spend some time at a meditation center with this monk, me and a couple of thousand other people, I had the experience, the full-blown experience, again, another Kundalini awakening. I was sitting outside by myself under a pine tree, and the Kundalini energy once again awakened from below all the way up, and it traveled up. This time it rolled up the story of
Mm-hmm.
Mary. And I realized, oh, the story of our life story is written from here down. This is our life story, the things we have to deal with. And each of the different chakras hold different emotions that we have
Mm-hmm.
to deal with. And as the story rolled up, the story of Mary rolled up, and it rolled up and it rolled up, and it reached the third eye. And on the third eye, I received divine permission to go for the Kundalini to go further. And when it went further, it completely released this light energy that is us. The halos you see around, they have them
Yeah.
printed around saints. Okay, like that there. And if you could see that, that's a
That's
sun.
the sun behind you.
And
Okay.
it just released this upper chakra of the light that just poured. It was so phenomenal. They call it the light of 1,000 suns. It was so
Mm,
powerful. And I realized that I had ascended from mere ego life, which is separation down here, which is based on fear. And
mm,
then I had no fear. There was no fear. There was just love and bliss, a never ending bliss of eternity, never ending bliss. And as I'm experiencing this, many, many things happened. It's like this hole opened up. It was like this light came in, like all the way down and pushed out my heart. And it's like a water a hose of like a fire hose of energy and light and love and bliss. And as this was happening over one of the buildings, I saw a cloud. And in the cloud was Jesus standing like this. And he raised up with the cloud all the way up until he disappeared. And I went, oh my God, these visions are real. People, you
mm.
hear visions. Oh my God,
Yeah.
these things are real. So there was, that was, and the words that came, that floated through my being were, uh, I am that I am. And I
Mm,
thought, and now as I saw him ascending, I thought, oh, am I ascending too? And I realized, yes, it's the inner ascension of your divine nature that comes here. And when the time is right and you're ready to let go of the ego identification of being a separate person and all the fear that engenders it, then you can be released and experience this divinity that is in you. And the words came, Aham Brahmasmi, I
mm,
am Brahman, and all this is my creation. The freedom is unbelievable. The power is unbelievable. And I'm like, how is this possible? This is in humanity. And yet we don't know it. We ignore it. We don't believe it, but it's who we are. This
mm.
divinity in a body functioning in the world. And there are many, many other experiences that I had at my own death, which I can talk about. But did you have any questions up until now?
I
Because
do.
oh,
I
go,
just,
I think I can go.
yeah, you could go. And I didn't want to stop you because you're such a
Yeah.
beautiful storyteller. And I want to
Mm,
ask a couple questions about these two
sure.
experiences. For people that, what you said at the end, why don't we do this? Why don't we believe? Because there's so many people, at least in our culture,
Mm,
in my experience, that are so skeptical. And I was one of them for a long time because I haven't
mhm.
had these powerful experiences like you have and other people have had.
Yeah.
I've had to choose to just trust without those experiences. And
Yes.
they're beautiful and they're powerful. And I could feel the energy coming through you as you spoke about it. And I could also piece together some of the synchronicities as you told your story, like how
Mm,
powerful this is. So, really simple question, well, maybe not simple, but why do you think in our culture, because you're so far ahead of the game, you were merging science and spirituality back in the 80s,
yes.
right? Way before it
Yes.
was popular. Why do you think so many people don't trust this energy or divine
Well,
love? Like, what's the root of that?
I would say ego identification. You're so heavily invested in having a personality and having being only identified as a body. And the ego, you have to realize, is based on fear.
Mm.
So, fear of, well, what if I let go of this and then what? Then what? And that's sort of the jumping into the void.
Okay.
Blessed are those who do not see yet believe.
Mm.
And so we're so invested in our suffering. We're so used to suffering. We were told we were meant to suffer. We were told we were sinners. And this is taught in religions, right? You're nothing but a sinner. You're nothing but a sinner. Pretty soon you believe this. But to let go of your anger, your fear, your pride, your greed, and all of that, then what? So
Mm-hmm.
the egoic structure that we've been brought into is very, very powerful and very strong. And usually, as I said, when I opened, I said it happened during a life crisis.
Yeah. Do you think
Because then it was the crisis that broke me open from this powerful egoic structure that we have here, where it's all based on fear and anxiety and all that. So it's hard to believe that there's anything other than that, because that's all we've known. That's all we've been taught.
Right.
We were never taught. I mean, whoever said to you, you're a divine being and you have the Kundalini and you must awaken it? No, you were
No.
taught God was an object subject out there and you're a sinner. But I understood that whole concept just blew up in my life. And I realized we are that. We are this one divine consciousness, and consciousness is having an experience. And at some point in our evolution, because humanity is always evolving, at some point in our evolution, something happens to us as an individual where we're tired of the suffering. We're tired of the anxiety. We're tired of being feared and fear mongering and hating others. And you realize, because hating others is a way for the ego to feel good about itself,
Right.
And at some point, it doesn't fill you up anymore. It doesn't do anything for you, and you're tired of suffering with it. And then you're curious. Then, well, maybe what she's talking about is real. If it happened to her, maybe it could happen to me. She doesn't look like anybody special, and I'm not. I'm just like as I said to someone on another podcast, I'm your next door neighbor.
Right.
And so this is our inheritance if we choose to reclaim our inheritance. This is a divine inheritance in humanity. And I was given this message this message came through me as
Okay.
I'm experiencing self-realization, which, by the way, I could not hold on to. I couldn't hold this energy because there is a magnetic pull of, let's say, karma that you have to live out until it's finished.
Okay.
But as I was experiencing the true state of humanity, the natural state of realization, the message that I heard was, here is your divinity, the divinity that awaits all mankind. Your soul wants full expression now. This is the presence. This is the living presence. This is living. This is real.
That's beautiful, Mary. And it's powerful. And I love that you're almost like channeling to us, this is real, this present
Yes.
power. And I think when that touches you, or it seems like for you and other people I've read their stories, there's no going back, like
No.
to the old way. It's like, how do you fit yourself back into that mold? Or why would you even want to when
Yes.
you've been touched by this?
Yes.
When someone does get curious or goes through the life crisis, where we are today, because things have evolved, are they able to shift like just one time, or is it a process? Is it a work? Is it?
It's a process and assimilation of getting used to not living out of fear. It's because then you become aware, wait a minute, there's something else other than fear. So I want to remember that place that she's speaking about. I remember that experience that I had where I didn't have fear, and keep remembering that experience, because it's a very, because the world is filled with a lot of fear right now, but
Yes.
also a lot of people who are waking up wanting something else. They're tired of hating other people. They're tired of projecting it out. They're
Hmm.
tired of living in fear, in lack, and all of that. And so it's choosing to remember, or, in those moments when you do have fear, you can meditate on your breath. You can learn meditation. You can take up a book that inspires you, that tells you the true story of true humanity, which I wrote about in my book, Out of the Blue, which is on Amazon. And about a month, it'll be on audio. It's an
Oh,
ebook and a
awesome.
regular book. In about a month or so, I don't know how long it's going to take. I chose someone else to read the book, because you need certain equipment to do this, and I don't have
Mhm.
that kind of a talent. So this wonderful woman, Bev Martin, is reading the book for me, and as a professional, and so she will be doing that, and that should be ready on Amazon in about a month, I think. I'm not sure how
Well,
long it takes.
I love that. And we can update that in the show notes when it is available for people on audio. Let's talk about
Yeah.
your book, because I read it a few
Mm,
months ago and it re-released, and it was really powerful. And a lot of what you shared about your story is written in there, but there were some pieces that caught my attention, and I wanted to ask you about one that really touched me, if that's okay for you.
mhm.
Because some of the work that I do with people, and many people do it in different forms, is about breaking patterns and ancestral healing.
Yes.
You shared your life story or parts of it in there, about giving a child away for adoption. And
Yes. In
as
the
I can,
60s.
in the 1960s, I can't even imagine what that is like in general, never mind back in the 1960s. Maybe you
Yes.
can share about that. But as I continued reading, and you talked about your healing through the grief and the pain, you talked about a repeated pattern that came up. And I don't want to give you,
Mm,
but maybe you can share it from your perspective, because it was powerful and it reminded me that unconsciously and even unknowingly of certain circumstances,
yes.
humans, we repeat patterns until we consciously choose to shift them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, family secrets are very powerful, but it's not a secret because, well, you may not speak about it, but it's going on underneath in the consciousness. Because later, when I became pregnant as a teenager, I wasn't married, of course, it was the 60s. It was only later in life that uh, I found out that my same thing happened to my mother,
okay.
that she wasn't married, she got pregnant, she gave up her child. So it wasn't much later that I found that out. And these are the family secrets, so-called secrets, and
Hmm.
they're bound to be repeated until you speak them and break open the pattern to release yourself
Okay.
from this pattern. And it was interesting because this ties back to my first experience with Jesus,
Okay.
when he woke up the Kundalini, and he
Hmm.
spoke about disease. And he said basically disease are these when you have stuck energy, and it's still there with you emotionally, mentally, and it's still stuck, whatever the trauma is, it's stuck in your consciousness. And until it's released, it's still there, and it affects the physical body. And of course, mind, emotions, the whole life. So
Right.
these family secrets are there, and they need to be released so that you don't keep repeating them. And so, and so it was many years later, about 14 years later, um, as a nurse, I was very much into drugs and pharmaceuticals and all that sort of thing. But but 14 years later, my thyroid started to fail,
Okay.
and it's Hashimoto's thyroid autoimmune, which is another interesting thing. And I went to the doctor, and they gave me Synthroid, a hormone replacement. When I took it, I became very ill from it, and I
Oh,
thought
wow.
I've got to find another way. I have to find another way. So I said a prayer, and I said a prayer to my meditation teacher. I said, look, you know, I know you know a lot, and I want you to send me to somebody who can not only explain this, the emotional reason behind it, which I understood by now was true, but also a healing so that I can be healed. The very
Mm.
next day, I went to work, and I mentioned this to a colleague of mine. And she turns around and hands me a pamphlet and she goes, oh, then you're going to need homeopathic medicine. And I go, what's homeopathic? What's that? And I realized that this was the answer. I asked, and this was the answer. And it was a flyer of a registered nurse who was a homeopath who was over in the next town. So when a student is ready, the teacher appears again. I made an appointment with her, but before I made the appointment with her, she had me fill out a timeline of never well since events from in utero, when my mother was pregnant with me, and throughout my life of events, you could say that were trauma events, and my reaction to them. And it could be when your dog died, when you left your school, when you had to move, when you lost your job, when you got married, when you got divorced, whatever the life event was, and your reaction to it, because that's a timeline of a repetition of a pattern. And this pattern has to be broken. And until that pattern is broken, you'll keep repeating it over and over again, and it'll come out in mental, emotional, and physical symptoms or life events. And so I asked my mother, Mom, did anything happen to you when you were pregnant with me? And she goes, oh, yeah. She goes, when I was 8 months pregnant with you, my mother, who was my very best friend and my life support, died. So I was left without my best friend, without my life support, and I became very depressed, and it was very hard for me to take care of you after you were born. So when I looked at my life timeline, I saw all these broken relationships that were supposed to be nurturing and supportive, and none of them would ever work. It was just like they just never worked. They always failed. And I gave up myself to them, but I didn't receive in return. So this pattern will play throughout my life and ended up in the expression of the thyroid autoimmune, because it was self-loathing and not and the lack of nurturance in my life. So this was the expression, and being able to express it out and speak it out.
Right.
So the homeopath gave me a remedy for this, because the pattern will show you the homeopathic remedy that you need to take. And homeopathic remedies are either from nature, either minerals or from plants, usually those things. And the remedy she gave me is called Nat Mura, Natrum muriaticum, which is table salt, which has to do with tears and grief. And the interesting stuck idea of Nat Mura is the mother is dead. The mother is dead. In other words, the lack of nurturance, the lack of support in one's life. So I remember taking this remedy, which was in water, standing at the kitchen sink, and took 1 teaspoon. And as I did, my whole energy left the room. My consciousness left. And I found myself in this dark black void. And all of a sudden I saw this little star, twinkling little star. And I go, oh, that's where my energy stuck. And then I saw another twinkling star that matched it. And I go, oh, that's the remedy for it. And when they came together, exploded, I went flying back into my body. And then I realized that's the law of like cures like. And it's based in consciousness. And we hold our traumas in consciousness. And it must be released in consciousness, or it will be repeated and affect our physical, mental, and emotional well-being. And it was consciousness-based medicine. And that was my first introduction to consciousness-based medicine. I called up my homeopath RN and I said, wait a minute, this happened to me. I've got to study this. Now I'm in my 50s, right? I have to go back to school. But I realized the importance of it, not only for myself, but for my family and for humanity, because now I understood. I was given the understanding of the basis of how it worked. It was the basis of consciousness. And consciousness is the living force of this entire planet. And these remedies from nature hold this consciousness. And each plant and each mineral holds a state of consciousness. And later on, I would read in the Rig Veda, the sacred text, the plants were sent to earth first so that man may not suffer. So our understanding, our connection with nature nature isn't outside us, it's in us. We're all in it together with everything. It's all one consciousness. And so it took, it was an immediate experience that I had of this. And when I called up the nurse and I said, I've got to study this, she goes, well, you're in luck, because in a few months, the great teacher, Dr. Luke Shepard, will be in Boston teaching for 3 years. Do you want to sign up? And I go, yes. And I thought, when the student is ready, the teacher
There
appears.
you go. And you went on to study with him?
Oh, yes, for many years. And he taught me so much. What a beautiful man, one of the most beautiful people I've ever met. And he just passed actually in January after
Oh,
many years
sorry.
of service. And we're so sorry to have left him because he was my age, but
Mhm.
he had a tough road because as a medical doctor, he was a neurologist, and then he realized these drugs aren't working. And then he went on to discover homeopathic medicine, became a great scholar and a great teacher. And he
Oh,
pointed to
wow.
the history of it, where Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, the father of homeopathy, is the only medical doctor that has a monument in Washington, D.C., dedicated to him by President McKinley. And it's in Scotts Circle, a mile and a half from the White House. It's an incredible monument. And on it is
Oh,
like
wow.
yours, like. Yeah.
Uh,
So, and I teach a course. I have a online video course on homeopathic medicine and the different remedies people can take for different problems, flus, colds, everyday
okay.
ailments, travel, postpartum stuff. And that's also on my website, maryterhune.com. And I have um, a special spring cost for it now. It's now 50% off so that everybody can
Okay.
afford to do it. And you just listen online, and in your own time, you can listen to it time and time again. And I also have a private Facebook page that goes with it. So if you have questions about it, you can ask me the question on Facebook and I will answer it.
Okay.
Or if you want to hire a session with me just to talk about all these things, spirituality and your needs and that sort of thing, I have a website that's Conversations with Mary, and you can click on that and set up a conversation with me for 30 minutes or an hour and set up a session with me there. And I don't take cases, homeopathic cases, but I teach.
You
I do
teach.
teach. So yeah.
Okay. I think, okay, so lots of synchronicities here, and I really appreciate
Yeah.
sharing where people can find you, because a couple times through this conversation and you sharing your story, I've heard ask and you will be given, right? So you had
Yes.
a couple heartfelt asks and the answers were there, but you also took the action and walked through the door,
Yes.
right? And then as you were ready, the teacher appeared. So if anyone out there is listening that really resonates with Mary and you've asked questions or you've asked for your teacher, she might be your guide and the teacher that you've been waiting for. So check out the links that she mentioned. I think that's really powerful. The other thing that's so synchronistic for me personally is I'm staying outside of Washington, D.C., and I'm headed there in a couple days. I have 2 more trips. I'm going to go to Scott Circle and check out that.
Oh, take a picture of yourself in front of that monument and send it to me, would you
I will do
please?
that. I will do that. I wrote it down. That's on my list because I was asking this morning, where are the best places for me to go in Washington, D.C.? I was there a week and a half ago, but there's
Mm,
so many different options.
yes.
And I can't get them all in 2 more days of. So that one, I was like, I'm going there. So I will look
Yeah.
for after that. What are the synchronicities that unfold for me personally and follow
There
the
you go.
blessings. And I
You
love
know,
how brave you
yeah.
are in your life to do that. And you share more of that in your book, right?
Mm, yeah,
Yeah, your life.
I do. But there's a lot that I can't get to in us speaking today, but there's so much more. And my experiences with acupuncture and psychology
Mm,
and how all that needs to the approach to it needs to evolve
uh-huh.
in a way. And also the what I feel that the nurses will be the ones who bring homeopathic medicine forward in the
Mm,
world because they're more open. They're not so stuck in the material reductionist view, which just says, just use drugs and it's just push around all these chemicals in you. And that's the problem, you know.
mhm.
So,
And I think more and more people are awakening to that, right? I've been studying and doing this work for a long time and even
mm,
own challenges with pharmaceuticals. I mean, there's a time and a place.
yeah, yes, that's right.
I loved what you
Yes,
shared. Go ahead.
there's a time and a place. And homeopathic medicine was part of our medical system at one point, but Rockefeller had it removed, even though he was using 2 medical medical doctors who were homeopaths for himself and his family. He
Mm-hmm.
had it removed from our medical system, which was taught in our medical hospitals. We had hospitals that, that used homeopathy doctors, and because it interfered with his synthetic petrochemical drugs, because he owned Standard Oil. And
Mm-hmm.
so he didn't want the competition. It was really the son who finally broke homeopathy from our system and took it out,
Mm-hmm.
using some powerful friends and, telling hospitals and schools, if you keep teaching and using homeopathy, it will take away your accreditation. So that's how they got rid of it. And, Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, who was a German physician, um, he was known as the great medical revolutionary of the 19th century. He was the great one who was bringing this incredible system of medicine that's curative and preventative, and certainly it's worked in my life. Yes, we need trauma medicine, allopathic, and we need homeopathic. It should be restored to our medical system to bring balance. So they
Mm-hmm.
try to use homeopathy first. If that doesn't work, then you can always move to something more invasive and pharmaceutical drugs if you need them. They can work together, but you have to have the knowledge and the openness to know when to use what. But of
Mm-hmm.
course, the more you use homeopathic medicine, which is really epigenetics that can affect your whole, that you're going to need less of the pharmaceuticals, and the pharmaceuticals don't want to hear that. But it's at some point, it's the people's medicine, and the people are going to have to choose it and push it forward, because
Mm-hmm.
the pharma is a very powerful uh, corporation that has the minds of everybody, the media, and of course, all you hear about every 2 seconds on the television are drugs. So you don't even know that this exists. This part exists. Of course, it's used throughout the world, but it's very suppressed in the United States. And
Mm-hmm.
it's, it's, they say all kinds of things about it, but it's here
It
and it's everywhere. So
it is.
just choose it. And as you open to consciousness, you can't help but want a consciousness-based medicine.
Mm,
And it's a consciousness-based medicine.
right.
And if we have to move from the material, if they just highly diluted, basically these remedies from nature are highly diluted, so that's only the data of it is available to you. And that's where it's curative.
Mm-hmm.
And that's beyond, it's just the material level. If they would just go beyond the material level and come out this way, and
Mm,
include consciousness as the basis of the foundation of everything. Max Tegmark of MIT is looking into consciousness as a fourth state of matter. Of course, it's prior to matter, but it's getting close. So of
well,
course he's been ridiculed for this. Of course, any new ideas are ridiculed.
right. As is very common for visionaries, right? To be ridiculed
Yes,
for what
very,
they want.
very, yes.
Do you see, or I don't know how much of a seer or a futurist you are, but do you see how medicine will shift in the future for us?
Well, it's already beginning. People are far more open now to
Mm-hmm.
homeopathy, which would usually be mocked a lot. I mean, in my years, these 25 years or more, I've been called more names than when you can imagine when I
Mm-hmm.
speak about homeopathy. But the reaction is like that is becoming less and less, even though it still exists. Of course, you can
Mm-hmm.
see it on Facebook. But more and more people are opening up to the possibility that homeopathy can help them, or they're even choosing it and realizing, oh my God, this works,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And but it's hard to get people, again, that's egoic structure based on fear. It's a fear-based medicine.
Right.
So it's, people are like, oh my God, I'm going to die, unless I take this drug or that shot or that. And I can tell you that, when we had the whole COVID thing, I had the virus, but I cured myself with homeopathic remedies. As
Mm-hmm.
I knew, because it's not based on a virus, it's based on the symptom picture.
Right.
What is the symptom picture? If the symptom picture is the same, regardless of what you call the virus, then the remedy is the same, because it's not based on the germ itself. It's based on the symptom picture. You have
Okay.
to know the symptom picture tells you what the remedy is. It's a blueprint for what the remedy is. Our bodies are intelligent. Consciousness rules. all the biology of everything going on here, the cells, and informs it,
Indeed.
innervates it, and informs all of it. And when you missed out on that whole realm, then you're just suppressing symptoms using drugs. And I'm not saying never to use them, but
Mm-hmm.
we want to move to a system where we're not creating so much chronic disease, because drugs do suppress everything. It doesn't release it. We need to realize we need to release this, and right from the very beginning of our lives, be brought up with this understanding. And then when you need trauma medicine, it's there if you need it. And
Mm-hmm.
for those who can't move past that, well, they'll use this. But for those who want to include homeopathic medicine into their life and bring it back into our healthcare system. But, our healthcare system has a lot of fear and greed, a lot of
Right.
money, billions and trillions and billions and trillions. And homeopathic remedies never expire. They don't
Mhm.
cost anything practically to make,
They're
and
very.
they're readily available. So
Mm.
in my class, on my online class, I teach what remedies you should be getting, what you should
Okay.
have in your home kit, and how to take it. It's
Wow.
very simple.
And
And
when does
it,
that? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
so it's online already. It's
Already
anybody who
online.
wants to.
People can just
You
go
can
and.
go to my website. It's right on there on the front page. You can click on it and see how that works for you.
Fantastic.
So that you have both at your disposal. You have allopathic and then homeopathic.
Mhm. So for people that are just seeking to understand more about spirituality and consciousness and shifting themselves,
Mm,
shifting the world, this would be a great
mm,
place for them to, you know, invest some time and energy in learning about, because it sounds like it can
yeah,
really shift people
yes,
physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, if that's what they're designed,
yes,
right?
yes. That's what they want. And yes, it's an entire system. It's a consciousness-based system that helps to release these traumas in your life over time. And of course, anxieties, depression, all of that. These
Mhm.
are inherited things that we carry with us, but they can be released.
Mm. And
I
I
mean,
think,
even Jesus said that. I mean, that's the first when he said, "It's all here." He gave me the experience of these energies
Mhm.
around my body, and he goes, "You have to understand, it all begins here, and then it affects everything."
Right. So it begins in that mental plane and
But it
affects
took me
throughout.
14 years later to be introduced to homeopathic medicine. So I carried all of this with me,
Okay. So if,
all these years looking, seeking.
but you did find it. And I think for so many
It,
people in the time that we're in, because you're on the early edge of that, it's
yeah.
happening more and more quickly. Before we wrap, what would you say to someone that is seeking a different way or seeking these Kundalini experiences? Like, where would you encourage them to start or take a next step?
Well, understand that consciousness wants to know itself.
Okay.
Your consciousness wants to know itself. Be curious about your own being. You can, there's a group IANS which I also give talks in from time to
Mhm.
time.
Okay.
International Association for Near-Death Experiences and Spiritual Experiences. You can go online and listen to them. You can go onto my website on the media tab, and
Hmm.
I did lots of podcasts that are available there, especially with Rick Archer, Buddha at the Gas Pump. It was a 2-hour. I've got a number of other podcasts coming up that eventually I'll get on my site. And
Awesome.
just keep feeding yourself, being curious about your divine consciousness. This isn't happening to us, it's happening from us. We are calling this forth. You're calling yourself forth.
Mm.
And just look for people who you resonate with, who are speaking this truth, and reclaim it. It's yours. As I say, I'm nobody special. It's just that I've been given these rather extreme experiences so that I could share them with people to affirm everyone. And you can pick up my book if that helps you, read it over and over again of my own experiences. They're like so many others that other people have had. So,
I
and
really do.
trust yourself. Trust yourself.
That is the trickiest part for many of us, at least in the beginning, to trust ourselves or that
Yes.
information coming through. I,
If it doesn't feel right, it's not right.
hmm,
And
that's a,
if it does feel right to you in your heart, it's right, no matter what, no matter. Trust your intuition. Intuition is powerful.
Indeed, it is. And
Yeah.
we trust it. That for me, the next step is really taking the action
Yes.
in that intuitive hit and seeing where it leads us, like following that breadcrumb trail. Mary,
Yeah.
it's been really beautiful conversation. Before we wrap, is there anything else you'd like to share with the viewers or the listeners that we haven't touched on today?
I would say, here is your divinity, the divinity that awaits all mankind. And take that with you. Take that with you. It's yours. It's ours. We're in this together. You're not alone. We're waking up. Let's all join together in this.
Ah, that's beautiful. Let us all join together in this because it takes more than one person to
Yes.
curate the change that we would love to see. Mary, I really enjoyed this conversation with you. You've really affirmed some things for me, even in the latter part. One of my little cat isms is that alchemy is, or curiosity is the root of alchemy. And you just
Yes.
kind of sum that
Well,
up.
I love that. Yeah,
So
love that.
thank you. And thank you for your wisdom and sharing some of your life experience and stories. And if people really do resonate with Mary, I mean, go out and get her book, go to her website. Everything will be in the show notes or in the notes where you can contact Mary. She is a delight. Like I said in the beginning, I've had the opportunity to meet her in person a couple of times, and you just will love her. If you love her energy coming through on the podcast, you will just love working with her or learning from her or whatever feels like is in resonance for you. So thank you, Mary, again for being here today. Thank you for our viewers.
Thanks, Kat.
You're welcome for your time, energy, and presence. And we will see you next time. Bye-bye for now.
All right, great. Bye now for now.